Well, folks, we have another huge announcement on the Claude front. Opus 4.7 is released. It's available. You can access it in your Claude desktop app or your Claude code terminal or wherever you're using Claude. It's pretty mind-blowing looking at the benchmarks here, because really the benchmarks give us an indication of just how much better it is over the previous version. So let's go through these and just kind of explain the magnitude of each one of these improvements and what that's going to mean for your workflows ultimately. The agentic coding. So the first thing here we see, SWE Bench Pro. What they're doing for this is they're giving the model real GitHub issues from open source software repos. And they're basically just asking it, hey, can you fix this bug for me by writing what should be the actual code? Now, what typically how their workflows operate for these kind of checks is that they have a human oversight step. The human engineers confirm whether the fixes were done correctly. And then essentially they give it a score, which is going to tell us how accurate the software did at solving these issues. Sorry, it's early. I'm trying to get my brain around this. Second one, agentic coding, agentic terminal coding. So it's similar to coding benchmarks in general, but the model operates directly in a terminal environment. So if you're using Claude Code, it would be in your desktop terminal, for example. And they have it running commands, navigating different systems, chaining shell operations, things like that. And ultimately, they're testing whether it can work like a developer actually would work with a command line, at the command line, I should say. Then you have multidisciplinary reasoning. So these are questions across a number of areas of math, science, law, I think, medicine, art, history, like all these different sort of, multidisciplinary topics. And it's supposed to be challenging. It's not supposed to be what is 2 + 2. It's supposed to be pretty high level stuff, things that most average humans would fail at, right? And the goal, of course, is to see how much the model improves. So the goal, it's sort of a no tools versus with tools split to show how much the model actually improves when it can have access to a search tool or a calculator. And you can see here, not as big of an increase in the multidisciplinary reasoning versus some of these other ones. I mean, some of these other increases are wild, like the agentic coding increase about 11%, but still increases across the board. And then you have agentic search. Now, this is the model's ability to locate information by browsing the web anonymously. It's not just a can it search in general. It's more like, can it navigate? Can it really follow links? Can it synthesize or put together different topics across different pages that it's accessing? Because that's ultimately what LLMs, that's the strength of LLMs, right? Is that they can grab a number of different sources here, and they can put it together. Like if you're on Google browser and you look at the AI overview, you're going to see those little different source icons pop up because it's showing you that, it's looking at Reddit, it's looking at this, and it's putting together information from that. So that's the idea. Interestingly enough, compared to Opus 4.6, as well as Gemini 2, Gemini 3.1 Pro. Now, this one is probably the one I am most fascinated with because I use MCPs a lot. I'm sure a lot of you do as well. The scaled tool use. If you're not familiar, MCP is Model Context Protocol, and it's essentially a third-party tool, we'll call it, third-party software that you can plug into Claude, that you can use, you connect, they call them connectors, into Claude. And you have access to all that tool's features, all that tool's knowledge and information, but you can use it right within Claude. So it's almost like accessing an agent, from that tool's sort of knowledge base in Claude, which I use all the time for different tasks, especially different SEO things. It's great for looking up specific data that isn't available in a web search. Really good for stuff like that. So this benchmark test is looking at whether the model can reliably use several tools simultaneously across complex multi-step workflows, closer to how a real agentic application would run, if that makes sense. Then we have agentic computer use. So this is looking at how it controls the actual computer system, right? So the clicking, the typing, how it would navigate a real interface, and how it does all this to ultimately complete tasks. So you think of it as like, can it use a computer the way a human does, rather than just being a text generator? And this is pretty impressive. I mean, it's a sizable increase over 4.6 and over ChatGPT 5.4. Now, the next item on here is maybe the most fascinating of the bunch. Now, I've seen a few videos come out already about people using Claude for stock trading. And that's really where I think When we first thought about AI, we envisioned tasks like that, right? Like, oh, I want using AI to make me money. This kind of ties into all that. So using it as a finance agent, and look at the improvement here. So yeah, what is this ultimately? So what they do for this step is they're testing its multi-step financial reasoning. So this is great for stock trading, right? So you're going to want your agent to analyze the data and be able to pull numbers out of that data and pull insights out of that data. Not just farming numbers, right? Pulling actual actionable insights that it can use and maybe trade with and make you money with. So that's interesting to see that big of an increase, and a pretty sizable increase over Gemini as well. So if you're using a Gemini API for trading previously, it looks like there's a pretty significant increase here according to their testing, which is fascinating. So not saying go out and create a trading bot right now. It's very high risk, but it's interesting. It's food for thought. We'll put it that way. Next, we have cybersecurity vulnerability reproduction. Now, this presents the model with known software vulnerabilities, and it says, hey, can you reproduce it? Can you reproduce a reason about the exploit? Can you figure out what's going on? And this is really relevant for both offensive security research, defensive tooling. Now, the fascinating part of this, you look all the way over here on the right-hand side, and we see Mythos. This is their supposed top-of-the-line model, which is too dangerous to release right now, their words. And we can see that it's scoring at 83% versus the 73% here for Opus 4.7. And Opus 4.7 is slightly down, if anything, from Opus 4.6. I think cybersecurity is something that's top of mind for people who use this stuff regularly. You always want to protect your environment, use containers, make sure that you're being as careful with your Claude code use as possible. Then we have graduate level reasoning. It's the PhD level questions in different science areas, biology. It's written by domain experts, and it's verified to be hard enough that other experts in other fields can barely do better than random guessing. And then we have visual reasoning. This tests whether the model can read and reason about charts, graphs, scientific figures. So if you feed it a very detailed PDF or a scientific study, is it going to be able to pull out what it needs to from that? And we can see here, this actually kicks it out of the park, right? So scoring very, very highly in this respect with an 82% and 91%. So it's looking at with tools and without tools. So the with tools variant lets it write code to process the image. So a little bit of a differentiator there. Next, we have multilingual Q&A. So these are testing performance across multiple languages beyond just English. So it's looking at sort of the global deployment angle where English maybe isn't used for this type of thing. Opus 4.7 also adds a new tier called xhigh that basically slots between the previous high and max settings. xhigh on Opus 4.7 will use 100,000 reasoning tokens, whereas Opus 4.6's max settings used about 200,000 tokens, so about twice as many. So that's a fairly sizable difference. So you're getting better reasoning on paper with less computation involved. Now, if you're an everyday user of Claude and you're not a PhD student or you're not building these really, really advanced applications, is this a huge improvement over 4.6? I think the thing we want to remember here is that Claude Opus has been absolutely killing it as far as releases goes. Like as far as how often they're releasing updated models, I think this is their fourth release now in the past 6 months, which is pretty wild and pretty substantive releases every time. So with these benchmarks, with the improved token usage, Claude Opus 4.7 is going to be an interesting one. I'm super excited to play with it a little more. And what do you guys think? Are you guys already finding success with it? It's been out for maybe a day or two now by the time this video comes out. How are you guys finding it? Do you find it working better for you for your Claude Code projects? Do you find it just working better in the general desktop chat for different tasks? Do you find its writing styles a little bit better and kind of less AI sounding? I want to hear from you. And until then, this is Brian with the AI News. We'll see you next time. If you find this content useful, go ahead and like, subscribe. Thank you.